Let's take a look at our Kafka consumer groups and their backlog using the Kafka CLI tools. Here I've gone to Kafka clients on the left pane, and I'm going to click on the CLI tools tab, which is going to give us directions on how to download the CLI tools. I'm not going to show the execution of all of these steps, but I do have an example terminal of what that should look like when you follow these steps correctly. If you need to take a closer look at this on your screen, you can always pause the video. Next, I'm going to select an admin service account since I want to use the CLI tools to view the consumer groups. So I'm going to go ahead and use kafka admin. This is a super user on my cluster. And I've already downloaded the OAuth 2 key and placed that on my desktop in a folder on my desktop. Now if I click next here, there's three sections here. There's produce messages and consume messages using the Kafka console consumer, the Kafka console producer scripts. I'm not going to be using those in this video, but I am going to set up this configuration and then show you what other tools are available in this bin folder. And the tool we're going to be using is the one that's used to view our Kafka consumer groups and their backlog. So let me go ahead and copy this code out here. It's going to be creating a file for us in the Kafka folder called kafka-properties, and we're going to need to edit this key file once again, just as we do when we're producing and consuming messages inside of IntelliJ. So here I've pasted in that command to create the Kafka properties file in that Kafka folder. The only thing I've done is I've edited this OAuth credentials URL. Again, it starts with file:3/, and I'm pointing it to the JSON file that corresponds to an admin account. If I go ahead and execute that, that file will get created. You could always navigate yourself into the ~Kafka folder and view the file if you need to. But next, I'm going to execute some commands from our bin folder that are related to the consumer groups and their backlog. The first command that I'm going to execute is going to provide us with a list of the names of the consumer groups that we have. So in my terminal here, so I'm outside of the bin folder. So in my command, I'm doing ./bin. Kafka consumer group is the script that we're going to use. I need to feed in the bootstrap-server. That's the endpoint of our Kafka endpoint. So it's going to be the URL of our server, :9093 is the endpoint where KOP listens. And then in command config, we're going to point to that Kafka properties file that we created. And then the next flag is a list. And it's going to provide us with a list of the available consumer groups that we have. My first consumer is the one we've been using most often. So let's take a look at that consumer group and its backlog. The command to view the backlog is to use the describe command. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in as well. Everything's the same. It's the Kafka consumer groups script. The bootstrap server is the same command config. We use describe, and then you feed it in the group with the group flag. Let's view the details of my first consumer, and it's going to provide us with information on that, including the lag. So the lag here is 206. Let's hop over to IntelliJ and consume the messages from the My First Kafka client topic here. That's in the KOP tenant, KOP namespace, My First Kafka client, the My First consumer. Here I am in IntelliJ with my Kafka consumer SN Cloud OAuth 2 consumer, pointing to that tenant, namespace, and topic. And of course, our subscription here is My First consumer. I'm going to go ahead and start that up. We should see that those 206 messages are consumed, and then we'll go back over to terminal and check the backlog. Now that the messages are consumed, let me go ahead and execute this command again, and we'll see that the lag is now 0. This is just showing two examples of commands that are used to work with consumer groups. You can try out many of the other commands for consumer groups using the CLI tools, or any of the other scripts that are available in the bin folder.